Hello, my love. Welcome to another episode of Blisstopia podcast. I am your host, Mercedes Castellani, and I'm so happy to be recording this episode. Today, we're going to talk about nervous system regulation, and I brought you the woman and the living embodiment of this work, Becca Nicholls. Becca is a success and life coach, neurolinguistic practitioner, somatic practitioner, and the host of the There She Glows podcast. She has a unique approach that blends shadow work, somatic therapy, nervous system regulation, and strategic coaching. Becca guides women to explore their depths, heal from within, and build unshakable confidence. She empowers women to transform their lives and become the most emotionally intelligent, solid, and successful version of themselves. So, welcome, Becca, to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
We're part of the same community. We worked with the same coach. We didn't do the same programs at the same time, but we are part of the same community, we could say. So I met you as this powerful, confident, aligned woman, a very successful coach. But who were you before all of this? How did you manage to transform your life and become the woman you are today?
Yeah, I think this is a really big question. It's also a really important question because it can be so easy to meet people, like you said, in the chapter that they're in right now and compare yourself to them or think that they woke up like that and they've always been like that. But that was absolutely not my journey. And in my very early 20s, I would say if I was to choose 3 words to describe myself during that time, it would be unfulfilled, unhealed, and frustrated. Because from the outside looking in, I had my life together and I had a stable government job with a pension and benefits and vacation. I had a boyfriend at the time. I had my own apartment. I had friends. I had good health. And so the fact that I felt so unfulfilled and unhappy actually brought me a lot of shame because I was like, I am so aware of how good, quote unquote, good I have it in life right now in the eyes of other people. And this is what I've been working towards for the entirety of my life, essentially, up until this point. And so the fact that I had achieved all of that, but I felt unhappy, unfulfilled, and most of all, scared that the rest of my life was going to look like and play out the way that it was feeling and playing out at that very moment, it brought me a lot of shame. So thankfully for me, I now know that that was just misalignment. It was all just misalignment. And I got into therapy. I got into personal development. I started healing from the inside out. And finally, I found what actually makes me feel fulfilled and what actually makes me feel happy. And that's always going to be a work in progress. I feel like that never truly ends. But I feel very thankful that I went through that awakening in my very early 20s, as opposed to living in that state for decades and decades and decades until I finally had the courage to be like, wait, I think I deserve better than this.
And it's so important what you touched on because basically, from the outside, you had ticked all the boxes, right? A nice job, you had a partner, you had an apartment. But what was it that you felt inside of yourself? And how do you feel now compared to that? What was misalignment and what does alignment feel like?
I think the things that I was working towards at that time were actually all the goals and ambitions and beliefs of other people. So I would say a lot of my unhappiness and unfulfillment was rooted in my career. I don't regret my career, but at the time I was working for the police as a 911 dispatcher and call taker. And I just did not feel happy. I just felt a lack of depth, a lack of fulfillment, a lack of pleasure and fun in the work that I was doing, the relationship that I was in, my relationship with myself. Like it was all just very serious and all very unfulfilling. And so I think I felt fearful of that time of what if I continue for the next 30 years and this is how I feel and this is the depth of relationships and friendships that I have and this is the career that I'm in where it's all good, I'm making good money, I have a reliable schedule, but I don't actually feel like I'm making an impact in the work that I'm doing. And so from there, I obviously went on my own journey. But one of the most important conversations that I think I've ever had, it's definitely top 3, was a conversation that I had with my mom where we both discussed what success meant to us individually. And so, to my mom and to a lot of other people, part of success is predictability, stability, security, all the things that I had. And so, if that's your perception of success, if you were on the outside looking in at me, you would be like, Becca is so successful. But to me, knowing that success is making an impact, living in alignment, being fulfilled, having fun, having enjoyment in my life, feeling joy. I was not getting closer to success by staying where I was. And so I had to, from that point, make moves that other people would not be willing to make in order to get closer to my version of success. So I think in your life, whether it's your relationships, your health, your career, your parenting style, whatever it is, you have to get clear on what success means to you. And it's so important to make sure that the way that you're living is a reflection of what success means to you rather than fulfilling other people's version of success through your own life and your own actions.
Absolutely. And I think if we don't stop and take time to think, what is success to me? What is happiness to me? Then we end up buying someone else's script of success and happiness. And that's what happens most of the times. People go blindly, they don't know themselves, they haven't done the work, they don't know their values, what success means, what happiness means. And then you just grab whatever you see out there on social media, whatever someone in the company says that success is, but that's not that person's definition of success. So I think you've described it very beautifully. Misalignment being, I'm seeking success that is not mine, and then alignment being, I'm seeking success according to my own definition of success. So beautiful.
Yeah.
Amazing. And in all of this transformation, there's one fundamental part, which is nervous system regulation. So I'm very curious about that story. How did you discover nervous system regulation, and why did it become such a fundamental part of your life and of your work?
Yeah, I love this question. So I had heard of the nervous system and nervous system regulation in passing, as I feel like most people, that's the limited knowledge that they have. And in 2023, I came up against this glass ceiling in my business where I was like, okay, I love the work that I'm doing. I really, really do. I love like the depth that I'm able to go in my work with people. I love being known for shadow work and the things that I was known for at that time. But it felt like something was missing. And from that point, I started the search to try to figure out what that thing was. And one thing about me, if it's not a full body, fuck yes, it's a no. So I was coming up against things that looked good and I could have said yes to, but it didn't feel right in my body. And one day I was listening to a podcast and the interviewer was interviewing Veronica Rotman, who was my mentor last year. And she was talking about somatic therapy and healing from the inside out and the nervous system. And it was just such a clear yes. Like I was like, this is the woman that I meant to work with. This is the program that I meant to be in. And so I joined her Somatic Practitioner certification and it was just so beautiful. And during that time, my nervous system obsession started. So not only was I in that program, but I was listening, reading, consuming all the things about the nervous system and the body. And first, I had to go through my own initiation. I really hold myself to a very high standard in terms of integrity and embodiment work. And during that time, I started to come into how dysregulated I was. And I had no idea that I was dysregulated. I think the problem is that we live in a very masculine, structured society. So being go, go, go and getting the most you can get done in a day and not wanting to stop and rest and relax and just having that tunnel vision, that can be very easily confused or mislabeled as being a hustler or being just like a really determined and driven entrepreneur. And so that's what I had labeled it as for a long time. But when you really put that mislabel off to the side, you get to see that like you can't actually slow down. Like you can't just sit and be alone with yourself and be in silence and relax for a moment. And you get to see how dysregulated and in fight or flight you were or you are. And so from there, I started my own little protocol, little system to get myself back to a regulated state, which actually doesn't take as long as one might think it does, even if you've been dysregulated for decades and decades and decades. And when I got to experience life from a dysregulated state versus a regulated state, I was like, shit. Like, it's kind of like when you go to an amazing restaurant or you watch the most incredible movie and you're just wanting to tell everyone about it. I was like, wow, you can actually feel like this in your life. This is so incredible. And so I became that much more excited in the work that I was doing. And then from there, once I was really anchored in being in a regulated state, I started with a select few of my clients that I was really comfortable with and had a good rapport with, and started putting them on protocols and experimenting with them, and their life changed. And it has just snowballed from there. And so it's been so beautiful. And I feel so deeply grateful and fortunate and privileged to be able to facilitate this work for people. And at the same time, it's also really, really sad because a lot of people do not have the knowledge about the nervous system. They do not even realize that they're dysregulated. They do not know what life in a regulated state can feel like. And I just think that in terms of the education that we go through in elementary school and high school specifically, that we have been really robbed to not learn about the thing that impacts our life in such an integral way. And so it's really become part of my mission to infuse nervous system work and body work into everything that I do, because I just truly believe that it's that important.
Absolutely. And I think also we live in a world in which a dysregulated nervous system is a badge of honor. You know, if you're always hustling and you're always busy and you're always go, 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 it's like you're successful. You know, when you say, oh no, I'm so busy, I don't have enough time, you're successful. But again, coming back to that, our own definition of success, maybe our own definition of success should include a regulated nervous system. That's like basically the measurement, the new measurement of success. So let's come back to the basics, because some of the listeners here might have not have heard about the nervous system and nervous system regulation. So for a woman who has never heard about this, what is this, and how do we know if we have a regulated or a dysregulated nervous system at a certain point?
So your nervous system is like the controller of your entire life. So what's really fascinating is every emotion that you've ever experienced, every behavior that you ever acted out, every experience that you've ever undergone, you are perceiving that, you are feeling that, you are experiencing that through the lens of your nervous system. It also has a major influence on the relationships that we have with other people in our attachment style. So not only your relationship with yourself, but other people, the world, money, your business, your clients, like all the things. It's very, very integral, as I mentioned. So when you are in a state of nervous system regulation, I really love to pull on the Goldilocks story, right? So in Goldilocks, it's not too hot, it's not too cold, it's just right. So there's this really strong feeling of contentment. You feel safe, you feel steady, you feel in control of your emotions, your body, your energy, your mood. You can handle stress. You feel calm and grounded and at ease. It's a very beautiful state. And this doesn't mean that when we have a regulated nervous system that we don't have stress in our life or we don't have moments that send us into dysregulation, but it means that we can come back to that state of regulation without staying stuck in dysregulation for days, weeks, or years on end. When we have a dysregulated nervous system, this can feel like constantly being in fight or flight. So the example that you gave and that I gave is like that go, go, go badge of honor, right? You're anxious, you're restless, you're reactive, you have tunnel vision, go, 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 no resting, hustling only, racing thoughts, feeling anxiety, feeling hot, just go mode, right? Because you're in that flight or fight mode. There's also freeze or shutdown. A lot of women find themselves in freeze, which people can mislabel as being lazy or being a chronic procrastinator. So when we're in freeze, we have a nonstop overthinking, very chattery, very loud brain, but we don't actually do anything. So, a very prime example of this is knowing that you have a work project to complete, or knowing you need to make a phone call, or knowing that you need to answer a text message that you've been putting off for 4 days, but you just can't get yourself to do it. And that way of being can be translated into every single pillar of your life, your relationship with the gym, your relationship with your work, whatever it may be. And then we also have shutdown. So this is where a lot of people can find themselves feeling numb or disconnected or exhausted. And when I first learned about shutdown, I remember being so gobsmacked because I was reading all the symptoms, the thoughts, the behaviors, the patterns, and I was like, this is depression. Like, these are the signs and symptoms of depression, but this isn't actually depression. It's a state of your nervous system. And so when we are in shutdown, it very much mimics depression. So I want to preface this by saying that I do wholeheartedly believe that people truly have anxiety, they truly have depression, they truly have panic attacks, they truly have ADHD. But I think for many people, and I've seen this firsthand with a lot of my clients, people believe that they have these standalone illnesses, when in actuality, those things are symptoms, in some people's cases, of a dysregulated nervous system. And once you regulate your nervous system, you're eradicating yourself of that symptom, which in your mind was a standalone illness that some people are on medication or treatment for. So when you move into a regulated state, not only do we get to completely abandon so many of those symptoms that you've been dealing with for, again, days, weeks, months, decades, but regulation also helps to teach your body to expand and have the capacity to hold more of what you actually desire. So more success, more money, more love, more visibility, more joy, more pleasure. We get to have all that from a state of regulation. Because if you think about it, if you're in a state of dysregulation, if you envision yourself running from a tiger or a predator, your body's first priority at that point is not to help you experience more love or more pleasure or more capacity for wealth and abundance. It's just like, let's fucking go, let's sprint. And so once you come back to that beautiful, grounded homeostasis, then you're actually in a safe enough space from your nervous system's lens to then hold and have capacity for all the beautiful things that we're truly supposed to experience in life, that is not just survival.
Absolutely. And this has happened to me, especially in these past couple of years, as my business is where I want it to be, my love life is where I want it to be, my health is where I want it to be, my trips are where I want them to be. And all of a sudden you find yourself holding so much that it's like, whoa, how can I hold all of this? Sometimes it's like this feeling of there's a lot of good things going on. They're all good, but it's a lot. So how can we actually expand our arms, our capacity, our nervous system to hold all of that beauty? And I'm sure that there's way more lengths that we could go into if we're able to regulate our nervous system and welcome all of those beautiful things into our lives.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because our nervous system is like a glass. So if you were to picture a water glass, right? I know so many people whose water glass is filled to the absolute brim. They are at capacity. And at the same time, they're wanting all this abundance in their life. They're wanting their dream partner to come through. They're wanting to have $100,000. They're wanting to go on trips. They're wanting to improve their health. It's like more, 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 more. And it's like, you cannot handle anymore. You actually cannot handle anymore. Your glass is full. And I think at that point, not only our nervous system, but higher power is looking down on us and is like, you can't handle anymore. You are not even handling your basic needs. And this used to be me as well in the beginning, before I knew anything about nervous system regulation. I just reflect on that version of me that was at capacity, burning out, fatigued, she was a hot mess. And at the same time, she was trying to call in so much and things that require so much capacity and organization and thought and intention. I didn't have capacity for those things. So it's no wonder that I did not receive those things at the time. When I became the safest place for number one, myself, but then number two, clients, abundance, wealth, all the things, that's when those manifestations actually came into fruition, because I was a safe person. I was a solid foundation. I was a safe steward to actually hold all of those things. So I would say, if you are someone who is just like wanting so much more and you're just doing all the rituals and trying to call things in and it's not working, I would say a wonderful place to start is actually looking at your nervous system and your capacity, because often that's where the answer actually lies and that's what's blocking you.
So beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing this. And let's say that we are trying to understand if we are in a regulated or dysregulated nervous system. Now we know, okay, if I'm feeling present, feeling calm, if I can hold more, maybe I'm in a regulated nervous system. If I'm running, I can't stop, I'm not eating properly, just hectic energy, I might be in a dysregulated state. And how can we spot if another person is in a regulated or dysregulated state? So, what am I thinking here and why do I ask this? Let's say we're having a conversation with a friend, with our partner, with a coworker, with a client, whatever it might be. It might be quite useful for us to tell, okay, maybe, my partner is not regulated right now, and maybe they're having tunnel vision, they're feeling this way. So how can we tell if the other person has a regulated or dysregulated state? Also to give ourselves that information, and maybe we can, start maybe supporting that person in getting into a regulated nervous system state. How would you handle that?
Yeah, this is a really beautiful and thoughtful question. And the really interesting thing is when you start to learn more about the nervous system and your own nervous system and the nervous system states, first and foremost, it is so easy to spot when people are dysregulated. I would say at this point, I know within 60 seconds of being in someone's presence, whether it's virtual or in person, if they are dysregulated or not. One of the biggest factors in this is that you can often feel it before you logically understand it, because our nervous systems are always communicating with one another. So a really easy example of this, if you're in a workplace or a family dynamic, we have all had that experience where someone walks into the room and everything just like shifts. Like everyone's just on edge. The energy just shifts so much. Our nervous systems and our energy is communicating with each other in those moments. And so someone with a regulated nervous system feels very steady and present and safe to be around. And then someone with a dysregulated nervous system is not going to feel that way. And you might notice that they are anxious, they are controlling, they are talking really fast, they are quick to anger, they are hard to connect with, like they're not really there with you in the present moment. Maybe they're emotionally distant or shut down. And they're also going to have very inconsistent energy, right? There's really high highs, there's really low lows. There's unreliable energy that kind of makes you feel like you have to walk on eggshells around them, which is not a great feeling. When one person in a relationship, doesn't matter if it's workplace or friendship, platonic, romantic, it's really beneficial if one person in that dynamic is regulated, because we can co-regulate together. If we have two dysregulated people together, then it's kind of just the blind leading the blind, which is no one's fault, because it's probably just them not having the information or the tools that they need. But in my work, if I was dysregulated and then I was trying to help and serve clients, that would not work. And one of the most beautiful pieces of feedback that I get from my clients is that they feel very safe with me. I'm a very grounded, reliable energy, and I'm very emotionally stable. That's a big, big compliment to receive. And so as a regulated person, I would say the first thing that you always want to do is protect your energy. Because if someone is in a dysregulated state and they want to be in that dysregulated state and they have no inspiration or motivation to change their behavior, then you just need to protect yourself. But something really beautiful, especially in romantic relationships, is having that co-regulation, right? So like just holding someone, being with them, being in a safe place for them. If they're really quick to anger or really quick to react and they're talking really fast and you're slowing things down. That can be really calming for them. That can be really soothing for them. And so you can make a big role in people's life, or you can have a big role, you can make a big impact in people's life, but also remembering that they have to want to get to a more balanced, regulated space. And some people just don't.
Yeah, what I'm thinking is, for example, if there's a conversation and you notice that the other person is in a certain state and you can actually support them through that journey. But then, of course, if they are always in a dysregulated state, every person needs to choose and do their own work, and we can never save another person. But if we can support
Yeah.
maybe in one conversation, maybe in a difficult conversation, for example, if we can be there for the other person and also help them co-regulate, I'm thinking this could be quite useful. So we've talked a lot about, holding more, having capacity for more. You run a highly successful business. You've just moved to a new home. You have many trips and many beautiful things going on in your life. So how do you regulate? I'm curious about your own practices. What does, a day in the life of Becca look like to regulate your own nervous system and hold all of these beautiful things at the same time?
Yeah, this is a really beautiful question. And thank you for those beautiful compliments. I would say right now, a lot of my rituals and routines and habits and just lifestyle is really based around my capacity and peace, like just building safety within myself and building safety for the beautiful things that I'm able to have that are external of me. As a contrast, my priority used to be productivity and just like getting as much shit done as I could. And when I look back at previous years, I would get up in the morning and I would have caffeine, and then I would go to an F45 class and do a really intense HIIT workout. And then I would come home and I would get into the ice bath and spike my cortisol again, and then have like a full work day and maybe like miss lunch because I'm such a hard worker. And I was just like in a workflow, and then I'm on my phone and I'm just kind of rushing through the day and ticking things off my to-do list, but without that sense of presence. Like that's really one of the things that was missing, is like presence and like that grounded energy. And so a day in the life for me, I would wake up. I love to do red light therapy either in the morning or in the evening. And honestly, it really depends how I'm feeling. If I'm waking up in a grounded state, then I'm really going to try to leverage that. So maybe I do some meditation, some breathing, some EFT tapping. I'm very intentional with my meal times and my coffee and my time with my dog, Ruby, like just being present and really anchoring into those experiences when I'm in them. If I was to wake up feeling a bit off kilter, or just my capacity, my anxiety is at a different space than I would want it to be in, that's where I would use and pull on like nervous system regulation more. And that's where I would do really grounding activities to get myself back down to like my baseline before I start my day. But looking at a lot of my rituals, they're all very centered around, just calmness and peace and safety. I have a sauna that I absolutely love to use. Again, I'm a huge proponent for my red light therapy. I'm a big meditator. I love to drink my tea and put my face in the sun. So I think if people looked at my life, if they are tied to or familiar with like a more masculine approach, they might look at my morning routine and my evening bubble baths, my evening routine, and it might not seem like the most productive thing to them, but it's very productive for me because I prioritize my capacity over just pushing through. So I'm actively regulating myself so that I can hold more without burnout. So yeah, that includes my nervous system regulation check-ins and routines. That is prioritizing rest. That is my like rituals that I really like to do. But I would say they're all just centered around presence and peace and safety and regulation and just grounding energy. And I think there's a past version of me that would be just shocked at like the calm, slow pace that I take my life at. But it has proven to be a very beautiful thing. And as you mentioned, it's caused me to be able to hold so many things at a time, because each and every day and throughout my day, I'm making sure that my water glass is empty so that like so much can be poured into that, which is really nice.
So beautiful. And as I hear you speak, I'm thinking we tend to think of these things, like maybe going into a sauna or just being in our garden or spending time with our dog. We tend to think sometimes of these things as luxuries. You go to the sauna maybe on the weekend or things like that. But if I hear and really listen to you, what you're saying is all of these things, they're not luxuries. They're not something extraordinary. They're actually the basics for us to feel good on a daily basis, on a minute to minute basis, so that we can actually regulate our nervous system, feel better, and be able to hold and attract even more into our lives. So it's not a luxury, it's a necessity.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I would also say that regulation and emotional safety, it's not something that I fit into my life, right? It's something that I lead with. And I want to be so clear that first and foremost, I do this for me because I deserve this. I deserve this life. I deserve to feel this way. But on the other hand, as you mentioned, and as I feel so fortunate for, I do run a highly successful business. And to think that I would be serving people in such a sacred way as a dysregulated version of myself, as a hungry version of myself, as a stressed version of myself, as a dehydrated, underslept, hot fucking mess version of myself. No way. No way. People deserve the absolute best of me, whether they're a family member, a client, a friend. And so not only do I deserve to prioritize those things and prioritize regulation, but my clients do as well. People aren't paying hundreds, thousands of dollars to work with someone that is a hot mess. And so I'm always thinking of myself, but because I am very mission driven, I'm also always thinking of them. And something that I feel so proud of, and I've said this before, and I know that it's really landed with people, is that if my clients watched me go through my day, go through my morning routine, my meals, my workouts, my client calls, my difficult interactions, they would be like, yeah, yeah, like she is an embodiment of her work. She practices what she preaches. And that's just a really beautiful thing, is to be like the living embodiment, because I know exactly how to lead people because I do it for myself all the time, every day. And I just think that's so, so important. Integrity is one of my core values in my life and one of my core values in my business. And I just think that's of the utmost importance in my life and in my business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we've talked a lot about practices that are related to the body, breathing, grounding exercises, for example, in your garden. We talked about different things that we could do, and they're usually engaging the body. So, why is the body so important in the healing journey, in a shadow work journey? Why do we need to pay so much attention to the body? Because sometimes at least in society, we're pretty much in our heads. And again, we put that as a badge of honor. But in reality, most important things are happening in our soul, most important things are happening in our bodies. And we've just forgotten about our bodies. So why do you think coming back to the body is so important?
Yeah, we have really forgotten about our body. And I think I forgot about my body for a long time as well. And even though you're looking at me and I'm looking at you and we just see each other, when I view myself and I view other people, I really break it up. Like, we have the mindset portion of who you are, we have the body portion of who you are, we have the nervous system, and to me, we also have the spirit and the soul. And so I think it's really important to include and consider and cater to all of those different pillars. And when it comes to our body, trauma, stress, emotions, energy, all of those things live in our body. They don't live in our mind. So you can't just think your way into healing, into confidence, into success. You have to actually feel your way there. You have to process. And to me, true transformation actually happens when your body believes that you are safe, that you are worthy, that you are powerful. And so that's why my work always combines somatic therapy, nervous system work, embodiment on top of the mindset work. Because to me, real, sustainable, lasting change is not just a mindset shift, it's a full body shift. And one of the ways we can know that this won't work is like, imagine if you were hungry, right? When you're hungry and your body is communicating with you, you can't just mindset shift your way out of that, right? Like, no matter what you say to yourself, no matter the positive affirmations about being satiated and full you're saying to yourself, your body is still going to be screaming. And so mindset work isn't the same as nervous system work, isn't the same as body work, but they can all compound off one another and work together. And so learning how to feel and honor and process my emotions and feel my feelings has been one of the most beautiful parts of my life and of this work, especially as someone who I have a tendency to be quite avoidant in my unhealed state. And I also think working in the industry that I did work in when I worked for the police, I was just kind of taught to suppress and keep going, suppress and keep going. And I really was not taking time to process and feel a lot of the emotions or stress or trauma that I was enduring at that time. And so I think getting to see my client shift into a regulated state is so beautiful and so fulfilling for me. But over the past year, specifically with the somatic therapy and the somatic experiencing work that I do with my clients, they share with me that I have taught them how to feel their feelings. Like they would say that in therapy and in books and in podcasts, people are like, you have to feel your feelings. And people are like, I don't even know what that fucking means. Like, what does that even mean? You know what I mean? Because we don't learn how to feel our emotions. And so it's such a beautiful part of being human, right? Like I only under the sacredness and the richness and the fullness of experiencing joy and bliss and pleasure because I also know what it feels like to feel despair and hopelessness and misery. And just getting to feel the depths of those things is so, so beautiful. And so that's why I really feel like including the body in the healing journey is so important because all of those things, those beliefs, those stresses, those experiences, those emotions, they're in your body. So you can't think your way out of your body's response to things.
I also resonate a lot with that because I do a lot of meditation and I've done a lot of five rhythms, static dance, all of these dance therapies. And my experience has been that there's two ways, as you said, of understanding things. We can understand from our minds, but we need to understand from our bodies. And for me, part of my healing and transformation has been to process whatever it was that was there, like grief or fear, things that I needed to process, and also being able to feel from my own body what bliss felt like, what success felt like, what power felt like. And at some point, some of those emotions were still a little bit foreign, but then I was able to feel them maybe for the first time, for the second time, and then actually get my body used to those higher states as well. So I'm always going to be talking about, well, meditation because it's important for us to regulate, to be in contact with our emotions, but also moving the body and really feeling, just thinking about things, but feeling through our bodies. And you talk a lot about becoming a solid woman. How would you describe a solid woman?
Yeah, I feel like similar to success, being a solid woman is going to look different for everyone. But for me, I feel like we have touched on two of the major pillars that I believe make up being a solid woman. So to me, nervous system regulation is going to be at the forefront of that because you cannot live your life to the fullest from a mental, physical, spiritual point of view unless you are regulated. And then also the emotional intelligence piece too. So being able to feel your feelings, process your emotions, having a good relationship with your emotions, and just being emotionally resilient and intelligent individual. But to me, being a solid woman is also about living in integrity. And living in integrity to me is so, so important. And oftentimes that just means living in alignment with your values. So I love core values. I love knowing what people's core values are. I always know what my core values are. I have core values for the year. And it makes it so easy to make decisions when you know what your values are. And when you know what your values are, then you can line up the appropriate goals and habits and routines and rituals. And then from that point, it's just really important to honor your word and be true to your word and follow through, because not only does this help with an integrity point of view, but also self-trust. And self-trust is such a key pillar when it comes to being a confident individual. So that would be really big for me. For me as well, being a disciplined person is being a solid person, because the reason why I do the things that I do every day, moving my body every day, drinking the water that I do, treating my emotions in my body and the nervous system the way that I do, that is coming from a place of self-love and self-respect. I am so disciplined because I love and respect myself that much that I am not willing to make excuses. I am not willing to not do the things that I say I want to do because I love myself that much. So I would say for me, emotional intelligence, nervous system regulation, integrity, discipline, those are all very, very important things when it comes to being a solid woman.
Thank you so much, Becca, for sharing all of this with us. It's been truly amazing to have you on the show. And what if listeners want to find you online? They want to learn more about nervous system regulation. Where's the best place to hang out with you?
Yeah, I would absolutely love that. So I'm most active on Instagram at Becca Nicholls. So Becca without the A, Nicholls on Instagram. And then I have my website, which is www.beccanichols.com. And then I also have my podcast, which is called There She Glows. And I upload new episodes every single Thursday.
Amazing. We're going to have all of those links in the show notes. And I always like to finish the episodes with 3 rapid fire questions. And the first answer that comes to mind is the right one. So, when was the last time you felt bliss?
This morning. This morning on my walk with Ruby, because the sun was out, but it was snowing and it was very quiet and it was very beautiful and peaceful. And it was just an absolutely wonderful way to start the day.
So beautiful. One idea that fundamentally changed your life. What was it?
Nervous system regulation.
Full circle moment. And if you could choose one rule that everybody in the world needed to obey, what would it be?
One rule that every single person in the world needed to obey. Heal.
Absolutely.
Heal. Everyone must heal.
This would be an amazing world if we all looked into our things and we would all heal. Amazing. Thank you so, so much, Becca, for all of your wisdom, for being a living embodiment of this message. It's been a true joy to share this episode with you, even though my Wi-Fi, to be completely transparent with the listeners, was a little bit all over the place. We managed to make it work. Thank you so much, Becca, for your wisdom, for your patience with the Wi-Fi, and just for being who you are, because you do shed a light on other people to follow your leadership.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a beautiful conversation, and I just appreciate your time as well so much.
I will see my listeners on the next episode, and in the meantime, in Blisstopia we trust.